Good afternoon, everyone. DA Powell, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, again, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call to order the Lackawanna County Prison Board meeting Wednesday, April 20th, approximately 12:32. First item of business is the approval of the minutes from last meeting. I need a motion to do that, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there the opportunity for the public to address the board on agenda items only? See no one? Okay, we're going to go to motion 22-3022, a motion to approve all current payables for the Community Correction Center and the prison. Someone make a motion to accept that, please?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we're going to start with the reports. We'll start with Controller DeBillio. Controller's report.
Yes, Chairman. Controller's report for the month of March 2022. The Controller's office reviewed the prison inmate and canteen account reconciliations, which were prepared by the prison business office for the month of March 2022 and found no discrepancies between the reconciliations and the bank statements. The balance in the inmate account was $496,731.20 as of March 31st of 2022. The balance in the canteen checking account was $782,781.54 as of March 31st. And in addition, as of March 31st, the canteen account owned 2 certificates of deposit, one valued at $15,000 even, and the other at $132,354.58, totaling $147,354.58. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for Mr. DeBillio? Having heard none, a motion to accept his report.
Motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. DeBillio.
Thank you.
Mr. McConaughey, the 22-3024, the Community Corrections Center report.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's the house arrest report for the month of March. Adult house arrest had 162 participants. Juvenile had 13 participants. Program revenues totals for the month of March was $61,686.81. Year to date, $172,852.58. Program expenses was $98,350.52. Program completions was 29. Program violations was 8. Outstanding warrants, we have 1 for work release and 2 for house arrest. And the budget overall report, overtime is at 26%, expenses at 24%, and revenue at 26%. That's the end of my report.
Any questions for Mr. McConaughey? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to accept the Community Corrections Center report.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to report 22-3025, the warden's report. Warden Betty.
Good afternoon, Board.
Good afternoon.
The in-house population, the average daily population for March was 685 inmates, 514 were county inmates. For the month of March, we averaged 599 adult males and 86 adult females. The average daily population of U.S. Marshal detainees is 171. Our overtime and out-of-county boarding reports are attached. And the staffing update, currently our correctional officer numbers break down to 170 full-time officers on shift, 5 out on workers' comp, 1 on continuous FMLA, 60 with intermittent FMLA, 1 individual on administrative leave, and 3 full-time vacancies for a total of 180 officers. Budget as of March 31st, revenue was at 35% and expenses were at 24%. Extraordinary occurrence reports, there were 5 since the last prison board meeting. On March 1st, a newly committed inmate was displaying signs of agitation and appeared to be under the influence of an unknown substance. This inmate wouldn't comply with directions during the booking process, and after several attempts to de-escalate this person, a decision was made to place him in the emergency restraint chair for his safety and the safety of others. On the 3rd, the County Probation Department was committing a combative inmate, male inmate, and this person was displaying signs of physical aggression such as kicking the vehicle doors, spitting at staff, etc. The prison shift commander ordered prison staff to physically remove the person from the vehicle and to place him in the ERC to ensure the safety of all involved. Also on 3/3, an unruly female inmate was being transferred from another county facility to ours, and this person was refusing to get out of the vehicle, and when staff attempted to remove her, she started kicking at staff. Eventually, we were able to remove her from the vehicle and place her in the ERC to ensure the safety of all involved. On the 7th, an inmate who was on a behavioral watch was observed to have self-inflicted a head injury. Our medical department assessed the person and determined he was actively suicidal. This inmate was then placed in the ERC to prevent him from self-harm. And on the 9th, an inmate who was on a suicide prevention watch was making threats of self-harm. The inmate managed to break his plastic lunch tray into pieces and began to attempt to cut himself with the sharp edges of the broken tray. Staff removed him from his cell, temporarily placed him into the ERC, and cleaned up the cell to ensure there were no further pieces of plastic in the cell before placing him back into that cell. PREA, there were 3 PREA investigations completed in the month of March. 2 of the investigations were inmate on inmate sexual misconduct allegations. 1 was founded and the other was unfounded. The 3rd allegation was a staff on inmate allegation, and it was deemed unfounded. All reports of completed investigations were forwarded to the district attorney's office for review. MAT update. MAT stands for medication-assisted treatment. Medication-assisted treatment is in the use of medications in combination with counseling and behavioral therapies to provide what's known as a whole patient approach to the treatment of substance use disorders. Medications used in MAT are approved by the Food and Drug Administration, and MAT programs are clinically driven and tailored to meet each patient's needs. Research shows that a combination of medication and therapy can successfully treat these disorders, and for some people struggling with addiction, MAT can help sustain recovery. MAT is primarily focused or used for the treatment of addiction to opioids such as heroin and prescription pain relievers that contain opiates. The prescribed medication operates to normalize brain chemistry, block the euphoric effects of alcohol and opioids, and relieve physiological cravings and normalize body functions without negative and euphoric effects of the substance used. We are in a phase 1 implementation of the MAT plan at the prison. Phase 1 consists of providing MAT for incarcerated inmates who are pregnant, and we're looking to provide MAT treatment for those who come in already participating in an MAT program. Our medical provider, WellPath, has had preliminary discussions with an outpatient therapeutic program provider and is looking to officially enter into an agreement, and we would have to do that before moving forward. Personnel. The prison conducted interviews with candidates who expressed an interest in a vacant sergeant position. I'm recommending the promotion of Officer Paul Miller to the position of sergeant on the 3 to 11 shift. Officer Miller has been an employee of the prison for 7 years, and prior to being employed as a correctional officer, Officer Miller was a police officer with several local police agencies. Officer Miller has benefited from numerous professional development trainings as a correctional officer and as a police officer. I'm seeking the board's approval of my recommendation to promote Officer Paul Miller to the rank of sergeant. Additionally, I'm looking to hire Amanda Gallagher to the position of office assistant. Amanda currently works in the county's payroll department and is an expert in the payroll system known as Kronos. The prison will be transitioning to using Kronos in the future, and Ms. Gallagher's expertise will be a huge help in mitigating any implementation-related issues. In addition to working with our payroll supervisor, Ms. Gallagher will also be assisting our business department in daily operations. Other items, I'm excited to announce that we'll be using the services of Jubilee Ministries to provide a chaplaincy service at the Lackawanna County Prison. Jubilee Ministries currently provides a similar service in Luzerne, Lebanon, Northampton, Schuylkill, and Snyder counties, as well as in several state correctional institutions. Jubilee Ministries will be using Pastors Wilfredo Medina and Tom Dugan to act as on-site chaplains. Both individuals are well-known at the prison, and both have significant experience working with and in the LCP. The chaplaincy service will be provided at no cost to the county. Jubilee Ministries will be working with religious leaders of all faiths in an attempt to reestablish a full-fledged program of religious offerings, which will include weekly services, Bible study groups, etc. We also need to purchase 2 Barber chairs for the prison. Our current chairs need to be replaced, and I'm requesting to use funds from the canteen account since the chairs are for inmate use and benefit. So in conclusion, I'm hoping to get board approval, or the board vote at least, on 3 matters: the promotion of Paul Miller to the position of sergeant, the hiring of Amanda Gallagher to the role of office assistant, and authorization to use canteen account funds for the purchase of 2 Barber chairs. And this concludes my report.
Are there any questions for Warden Betty?
It varies. To get a halfway decent barber chair, it's significant. It's about $600 to $900, depending on how many, I don't know, little gadgets on the side you have. But I would anticipate at most $900 a chair.
900, did you say?
Yeah.
And that is an acceptable use of canteen funds for that.
I believe so. I know we have it in there. The monthly supplies for barbering services are an automatic that I don't have to seek board's approval for. This isn't a monthly thing. It's the first time we're buying chairs in probably a decade.
Are there any other questions for the warden?
Well, I have 2 questions, but if you're done with these, everybody good with what's on the floor already? I had a question about, also has to do with canteen funds. And there's been some question with safety and security with some of the control rooms with the windows, being able to peer into the room. And the discussion was to get some pricing on the Mylar, the reflective film that they put on windows so that our people can see out, but inmates can't see in and be able to see the cameras and computers and such. So I'd like to know if, because it is a safety and security thing, can we use the canteen funds to assist with purchase of having the film installed? I know they've been looking at this for many years to try to get this done.
Mr. Salfinelli?
I believe that's outside the scope of the board policy on, there was previously a law requiring canteen funds to be used for the benefit of the inmates themselves rather than normal operational costs. The law was modified to broaden the permissible use, but this board had enacted a policy probably 6 or 7 years ago, keeping within the parameters that had previously existed directly to the inmates.
Okay, so safety isn't a concern.
I mean, it's a concern, but it's directly to the inmates.
All right, well, okay. And my second question was, is there a chance that we can maybe start back to our community service program?
If I can, I personally think that's a great idea. Prior to the pandemic, we actually had 2 officers who had what's called a bid post for community service, and they would go out into the community and provide essentially landscaping on county-owned properties. They were part of the county land bank. It would make the properties themselves more attractive to potential buyers and get those properties back on the tax rolls. We used an officer. He would go out with, 2, sometimes 3 inmates who were screened for outside clearance, and they would go out with a weed whacker, a lawnmower, and whatever, and make the properties a lot more presentable than just an overgrown. And I think the neighbors of those properties like that very much as well. And at times, we also went on the rails to trails and cut back the vegetation overgrowth. I think it's a great idea. We got away from that during the pandemic because we had basically done away with all forms of the community service program. It's still in place, it's still doable, and at this point in time, I'm not a medical expert. It seems like, according to the Scranton Times, that we're now peaking with this variant of Omicron, and if it peaks the way Omicron did, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, we should be well on the downside of that peaking. I think it makes it safer for a lot of things, such as us opening up the facility a little bit more for visitation, for programming, for the community service reestablishment. So I just wanted to put that piece in. I know it's a board thing, but I thought I'd throw that in there.
Any other questions for the ward?
It's good to see that we'll have a chaplain back at the prison, and we appreciate Jubilee providing their services at no cost to the taxpayers for the benefit of the inmates.
At the end, sir, we'll get to you at the public comment portion. You can address the warden if that's okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the warden? Okay, warden, you said you were looking for 3 approvals from the board
Yes, sir.
on 2 personnel matters and on the purchase of the barber chairs?
Yes, sir.
Based on the warden's recommendation, I'll make a motion to hire promote Paul Miller to sergeant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain from voting due to the fact that I'm not familiar with either of the individuals, and I'm not comfortable with moving forward with hiring somebody without having personal knowledge of their experience and their education.
Well, the vote's going to pass 5-1.
Based on the recommendation of the warden, I would move for the hiring of Amanda Gallagher as office assistant.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain for the same reason previously stated.
Okay, the vote passes 5-1. On the third matter, the warden is requesting the approval from the board to purchase 2 barber chairs. You said 900 would probably be on the high end of the cost of these chairs, warden?
Yes. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the vendor is a CoStar's vendor. I didn't do all the research. I wanted to get the authorization first, but I'm pretty sure there's a CoStar's vendor available.
The funds will come from the canteen fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Based on the warden's recommendation and the policy to have the canteen funds used for inmates' benefit, I would make a motion to purchase 2 barber chairs at a cost not exceeding gross of $2,000.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Dave, you said we won't need a vote on adding Jubilee as a chaplain?
I don't believe so.
Warden, how many phases are there to that MAT program?
Really 2. I had some preliminary discussions with our medical provider. Again, phase 1 was kind of like an introductory type of thing, where obviously the most important individuals to receive that would be pregnant inmates that come in that are opiate addicted. And we are doing that now. And again, part 2 of phase 1, although that's a little confusing, part 2 of phase 1 is the continuation of offering MAT to those who were getting it before coming into the prison. The second phase is really kind of expanding services for individuals that come in that weren't involved with medical assisted treatment, that are expressing a desire and qualify.
Anybody have any questions regarding the MAT program for the warden? Okay, Warden, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the warden's report.
Motion.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I think we can do that, it won't be long. Yeah. Okay, this is the opportunity now for the public to address the board. Anybody who would wish to address us, please come up to the podium and address. Your name, please.
Eileen Acapinti, Dunmore. My concern today was, again, the lack of religious services as we enter the third Easter season with COVID. It's a reality, it's here to stay. So what we did, and I need to thank the warden that we did move ahead with at least getting Jubilee on board. But in the interim, prior to us knowing that, we had over 200 signatures accumulated of people that not only wanted chaplain at the prison, but also wanted expedited, because we've talked about Jubilee back in October, and it's now April, and I don't know why the slow process. Regardless of COVID, we have to get religious services in the prison. As I said, it's 3 years now of putting up with this. But just if I could read what the people signed the petition for. We have signed this petition to encourage the Lackawanna County Prison Board to address the spiritual needs of inmates by, 1, moving forward with the hiring of a qualified chaplain at Lackawanna County Prison, as was already agreed upon at the prison board meeting on October 20th of 21. Resuming religious services at the prison as soon as the COVID precautions allow. And again, the COVID precautions, I think, are sort of up in the air, and no one seems to know exactly what the COVID precautions are. And I just, regardless of that, we have to have the religious services like we have dietary, like we have mental health. So I'm hoping that Jubilee, or whatever our service is, that could be expedited, and I'd just like to submit the signatures of the people who support our petition. I just gave them to you.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you. Anybody else would like to? Come on, ma'am. Just state your name, please.
My name is Nina Olmedo. I'm from Shiloh Baptist Church, and we have Deacon Dorman Waters from our church also.
Could you please repeat your name? I didn't hear it.
Nina Olmedo, Nina
Thank you.
Olmedo. And I'm up here for the same reason that the lady previously came up, so I just wanted to submit these signatures that we collected from our church.
Well, I'm sure I could speak for everybody on the board. I think we all agree that these services are beneficial to the inmates, so I think we're headed in the right direction. And we'll continue to do that.
Sheriff, I should have brought this up prior to our vote on it, but I'm just wondering if there's a written agreement between the prison and Jubilee, and do they have insurance in place in case someone were to be hurt on the premises? Not sure if we know that. Can you look into that, Warden? Okay, thanks.
You're going to check into that, Warden? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Bob Hamlin. I'm the Gothy of the IDVGer.
How are you, Bob?
A religious organization in Lake Ariel. Again, I support what the ministerium has already spoken to. I was wondering if you could explain what the schedule is for reducing the COVID restrictions as we go forward, what your criteria is, please. Thank you.
Warden, would you address that, please?
Absolutely. I have a loose game plan right now, and that's because of the fluidity, if you will, of what's going on right now. And just so everyone is aware, and I don't mean to give Boris a big head here, but I read the Scranton Times every day, and I always look at what's happening with COVID-19. And from what I'm reading right now, we're peaking, like I was just saying before. We're peaking with the Omicron variant, they call it, what's it, BA2? That's peaking. Right now, just so everybody in the room realizes this, we have 0 staff members with COVID, any variation of it. We have 0 inmates with any variation of it. But as that's happening, the community at large, it's peaking. We've entered into the high transmissibility category according to the state. If it follows the same path that Omicron did, it's going to peak and go away very quickly. I shouldn't say go away. It's here. You're right, Eileen. It is here forever with us in one shape or another. But this latest bump is going to be quick, I'm hoping. But because of that, I'm keeping things very fluid with an eye on May 1st.
This always has to be a consideration before we can move anything forward.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but it is a consideration we have to be in mind of.
Right, and I do look every day. I look at the newspaper to see what Lackawanna County's numbers are. I compare it with Luzerne. I know that Pike and Susquehanna are also in high transmissibility category, just like we are. We're the 3 in the Northeast. I am paying attention to that. We are taking what precautions we can at our facility, knowing there's a certain level of inevitability to this. It's so contagious, you know, it's kind of hard. And so far, we've been fortunate. So loosely, I'm looking at May 1st. At that point in time, that's only a week and a half away. That's what I'm looking at. I'm hoping this current spike is headed downhill at that point in time. If we have to push it back to the middle of May, we'll push it back to the middle of May.
Does that address your folks' concerns regarding that, what the Warden was saying?
It does mine. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, Warden.
Doug Posgate, retired clergy in the Scranton area. I would like to make mention that I think if those signatures on the petition are taken note of, there's probably 20 different communities represented on those petitions. I would like to ask the warden if he's aware of when Jubilee will actually begin the process of being present on site.
Again, I'm thinking 2 weeks now.
Okay, and that's if the insurance issue is cared for. I'd also like to ask if the warden would help us to understand with a balance of $782,000, can you give us some examples of what benefits the inmates have had, even in the last year, from that fund?
Predominantly, we've used those funds over the last 2 years for purchasing mattresses, bedding, recreational basketballs. I always just say basketballs. I don't have a list with me, but it has not been a very expansive list of items over the last 2 years because of the fact that we were so shut down.
And thank you for that. If you had your druthers, what might come of some of those funds that have some significant amounts to them to be utilized? That is an extraordinarily large amount of money.
First, I'm open to suggestions, I always am. Secondly, the one thing that's been in the back of my head is that we've, GTL, our phone provider, is right on the cusp now of, we have tablets for everyone. We're in the process of setting up stations so everybody can have a tablet.
Excuse me, Warden, could you go up to the podium there so that?
I didn't know if I was.
No, that's okay.
I was saying GTL, our phone provider, they're right on the cusp of providing one-to-one tablets. We have them on site. It's a matter of setting up enough charging stations so that practically everybody in the jail can have a tablet. I say practically because there are some people that are in restrictive housing, and it's one of the tools that we use for behavior modification is you're not going to have your tablet. You're not going to be able to use the phone 7 days a week, you know, that kind of thing. But getting back to this, one of the things that I'm really high on is they have a library service, and we're looking at buying a whole bunch of books that can be electronic books that can be on the tablets themselves for free for inmate use. I don't know how much that's going to cost. I'm waiting to get in touch with the folks. It's not really GTL. It's another company they work with to kind of set up a library. And I want to buy as many e-books as we possibly can, so that if you're there and you're bored and you got a tablet, I'd rather see you reading a book than the other options. But I have a feeling that could be a significant amount of money. But again, like I was saying, in case I wasn't loud enough for anybody, I'm open to ideas. That is a big sum of money, because it's not just $700,000 in the canteen account. As Mr. DeBilio tells us every month, there's a $15,000 CD and a $132,000 CD as well. And it's money made from, well, it's from the profits of sales of commissary items. So, and we use it to spend on inmate benefit. I'm all for that. I don't like sitting on $700,000 to $900,000. I'd rather spend it responsibly. So,
Thank you for addressing.
Some of the items that we spend money on from the canteen account on a monthly basis without, prior approval. For example, this month, Xfinity Digital Starter TV, Total Cable TV, High-Speed Business Internet, Barber Supplies, Law Library tablets, Indigent Legal Mail, sales for Oasis, which handles the food, snacks, and supplies, $50,000 worth. Law Library external hardware and materials, haircuts for 357 inmates. Board games, puzzle games, playing cards, monthly management fee for commissary services, mattresses with pillows, flat sheets, towels, sports bras, black boots, khaki shirts and pants, purchased 4 water heater dispensers for inmates, and body scanner radiation monitoring, for example. That was in this month's. You're welcome.
Anyone else would like to address the board? Yes, ma'am. How are you?
Norma Jeffries, Scranton resident. As I'm sitting there listening to those numbers, they are just a lot, for money to just be sitting there. But one of the things that you said, Mr. DeBilio, was the mattresses, and those seems to me like those would be a part of doing business, that it would become under the cost for the prison of doing business. Why would an inmate have to pay for mattresses and pillows and things like, and use their money to pay for those types of things? And as I'm sitting there and listening to that, and I'm thinking, it seems that the prison should be paying for those types of things. That's my one question. And also, when someone mentioned, I think it was the prison warden mentioned about the recreational activities. Is there someplace outside that they can go? I know when I've gone through there, because I've been over and volunteered, it seemed like there was a little grassy area outside one of the windows or things. Is there a recreational facilities outside that they can get fresh air, enjoy a day like today, and which all deals with your psychic, as being cooped up inside all day? Those are my questions. Okay, thank you.
Total expenditures, by the way, were $103,692 for the month of March from the canteen account. Now, whether or not the mattress question, should come from the canteen funds, I'm not certain. That might be, for the lawyers to decide.
Dave, could you just,
I believe that that's an upgraded mattress with a pillow as opposed to what's provided operationally, if the ward wants to.
Is that the upgraded mattress with the pillows?
Yes, it is.
That's the upgraded version of mattresses.
Determine who gets an upgrade and who doesn't?
So the regular mattresses come out of the prison budget.
Yeah, but we've been purchasing, everybody gets a mattress with the built-in pillow. We're purchasing using canteen funds, because if we don't do that, we'll be using county taxpayer funds. And it doesn't matter to me, but it may matter to others, because that could add up to quite a substantial increase that I would have to seek in my budget. And it is for inmate benefits.
Father?
I'm Father Bill Pickard. I'm wondering about religious volunteers coming in to help with services, to counsel. I would like to have the opportunity, if I could, to do that as a volunteer, or anyone else who wants to.
You'd have to go through the warden and set that up with his staff there. About volunteering.
Yeah, and with Jubilee coming on board, we would be working hand in hand with Jubilee Ministries for that. And how are you, Father? Haven't seen you in a few years.
Yeah, I've been in New York for a while. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bev DeBarro, Scranton. Well, this is surprising news about the Jubilee. And a lot of details, I'm surprised, it's just like, here it is, but we need details. Anyway, what I came with today, in addition to the petitions, which illustrated the community care about our prison. When I presented my few pages of petitions, people were just overwhelmingly surprised that we didn't already have a chaplain. For 12 years, we haven't had one. So you can imagine that we're trying to rectify that. So what I have today is a little bit of, you might consider it old news, but it was business that has not been attended to. And October was mentioned. The month of October, we started this really in-depth talk about a warden. At that time, we were advised that the public couldn't just say, oh, we need a warden. I'm sorry, chaplain. Warden. But that the request had to come from an inmate, himself or herself. So with that, this was during COVID, and I haven't been able to get in there, and but only by mail I had addresses of some of the female inmates, which I was in touch with that way. So I wrote to them well, let me just use Shantae's words herself. I'm not going to read her whole letter, but the parts that pertain to this. This was in October. She sent this to me of 21. Bev, I did get your letter, and I did what you asked. I reached out to the prison board, as well as Judge Gibbons, about bringing church back. I actually got a response back from Judge Gibbons, stating that he was working to restore many prison services to their pre-COVID state. I explained that it was a religious right and all of the benefits we as inmates reap from having these services. So she sent me this letter in response to my request, and then she sent me, this is a copy of the letter that she got from Judge Gibbons, which is wonderful, and I'll read a sentence here. Dear Ms. Ross, I received the letter sent from the Women of Bravo unit under your name regarding the reestablishment of religious services at the prison. And he goes on to say that, yes, we need spiritual services in there. But I did not see the letter that was sent in to Gibbons and the board. Now, Judge Gibbons saw his copy. The board, I don't think, at least it was never brought up at a board meeting, which it should have been for public record. If we do have that, I would like to hear it, because several women wrote, obviously, and yet it wasn't mentioned. But yet they did that because that's what they were advised to do. The second letter, I asked another inmate, I'm going to give you an original copy of hers for the record. It should have been read at the record of October 21. But here it is now. And right now, I'm just going to read maybe a third of her letter, and you can see what I'm going to read, but you'll have the whole copy. So here goes, because I said to her on the phone, actually, because she was at the halfway house, you know, I said, you were trying to get a chaplain in there and religious services, and since you're experienced, would you write about it? And she did, and this is what she wrote. And my name, well, I'm writing to share my spiritual experience in prison with you and anyone else who is open-minded and willing to listen to my testimony. I was 29 when I was arrested. At that time, my son was 11 years old. And this was in April of 17th that she was arrested. She was 3 years in our county jail and then 2 years on to federal in Danbury. And as you heard, she's now at the halfway house in Harrisburg. There were times I felt hopeless. There were times I was sad and depressed. Coping with my absence from my son's life was hard. I couldn't be there to help him. It broke my heart. I was irritable. I was rude to my friends. Psychology staff at Danbury FSL, Danbury, Connecticut Federal Women's Prison, recommended that I take Prozac, but it wasn't a psychological problem that I was dealing with. It was a spiritual one. Where was my comfort? Where were the answers to my prayers? So instead of taking medication, I requested to speak with the chaplain. I explained what I was going through and how I was feeling. He reminded me of God's love. He assured me that God was working things out for my good. What the devil meant for evil, God turns it around for good. I found comfort in that. I believe that God is faithful and just and that he loves me. My hope was restored. My faith deepened. I had rough times when I was incarcerated at Lackawanna County Prison. We didn't have access to a chaplain. But if I had someone to help me and guide me spiritually, Lord knows that would make a world of difference. In conclusion, having a chaplain available and accessible to inmates is imperative. It will reduce the level of stress for those who need and seek spiritual guidance. It will make a difference and may be beneficial to all parties involved. I hope and pray you see how necessary it is to have a chaplain. I do speak from experience. I know it will make a difference for the men and women who are incarcerated at Lackawanna County Prison. I thank you for your time. God bless you. Respectfully, Siobhan. So I'll give you that copy. And also, speaking of religion, this is quite a month in the world. We are in Ramadan, we are in Passover, and we just had Holy Week. It's not, it's years between these three things converging. And that was a lot of time missed in there. I'm probably, when you went to services of your faith, you probably maybe thought of the inmates in there that didn't have such an opportunity to have the scriptures and meditations, but hopefully we will have a good change there. At this time, I think Lindy Morelli might have a few words. I know what she was going to say has changed as our other talks have changed because suddenly we hear we're getting a chaplain and religious services. So. You'll stay with
Lindy Morelli, Scranton. I'd like to thank Warden Betty and the prison board for arranging to have the Jubilee Ministries to be a full-time, or to provide chaplaincy services, and also Reverend Tom Dugan. My concern is for the Catholic people who reside at Lackawanna County Prison, and I know that when the religious services resume, that Father Ruth was providing liturgy every week and we appreciate that opportunity. But I was also wondering, and I could maybe coordinate this with the chaplains that will be in place at the time, I would like to be able to provide some pastoral care because for the Catholic persons that reside at Lackawanna County Prison, because I believe that the ministry of Reverend Father Ruth is limited. He's unable to provide that. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I guess everybody has already stressed the importance of having a chaplain, and we deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
P.S. I wish Lindy would have spoken more about, she's been going into the prison as a volunteer, as the warden knows, since before the new addition was even built. I mean, and her qualifications, she's got degrees in counseling from Marywood College, and that's her mission, is counseling. And she's come in to the women before and corresponds with some of them. And I think it'll be good to have her back on board. We're blessed. We are. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Sure.
I don't think there's a person in this room who hasn't had their life moved in significant ways with music underneath it, beside it, above it, and below it. Lindy shares the gift of music, and she has done that in the prison many, many times, uplifting the spirits of those who are incarcerated. I give thanks to God for Lindy Morelli.
Thank you.
And it's greatly appreciated.
We appreciate everyone's efforts. I mean, as a board, we all agree this is beneficial to the inmates, and we want to see this happen. And we're going to work in conjunction with the warden to keep this moving. Any other comments from the public? Is there any other members, other business?
I have something. So we're about a little over a year into our new medical provider. And I think it's time to take a good look and, with shift staffing, the services. So I'm going to make a motion that we have an audit done on the medical provider and see how our services compare to what we were contracted for, between the county and WellPath. So I am making that motion.
On the question, Chris, I don't understand, an audit. So are you talking about an accounting audit on money spent versus services? And is there a cost associated with that?
Well, the audit that I'm referring to would have to do with, there's been some issues with the provider not having adequate staffing for different shifts. And that's all part of our contract. So between nursing, and I don't have all the information right here in front of me, but between nursing, doctors, and what have you, I think it's very important that we look into it. And in the form of an audit is the only way I can see that how we could come up with, how it compares to what we're contracted for.
Can we get the warden's opinion on the medical services currently?
Sure. I don't have any problem, Commissioner, if you're looking for us to do an internal audit. We can take a look at their staffing, the services, whether or not they're meeting the contractual requirements.
That would be fine with me. I mean,
but we can do something officially that we can report to the board. That's not a problem.
okay.
So I don't have any problem. I don't know if you were talking about some outside agency doing something, but
I'm open to suggestions. I would just like to know where we stand between how things are being done and what we're contracted for. I know we pay basically they took the total amount, divided it by 12, and we pay them monthly.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so previously, that's not how things were done, but I just like to know what we're getting for what we're spending.
Again, I have no problem come back next month with some type of a preliminary report that you can obviously expand on if you so choose to do so.
I was just going to request, could you make this a monthly thing when you, and add that to your warden report?
Sure. Yeah. that's not a
Incorporate that
problem.
into there?
And again, if next month they come with, and I'm not hitting on something that somebody would like, just let me know and we'll incorporate it. We can expand it, we can contract it.
Okay, that works for me, thank you.
Do you feel the medical services are adequate, Warden, currently?
I mean, that's a good question. I'm not really qualified to make that call from a medical perspective. I know that the number of runs to the hospital are up. We feel that in our overtime budget. I also know that the number of grievances are down, and we see that with our grievance coordinator. So I think that maybe what Commissioner Shermack is suggesting is a great idea, to take a good, long, hard, serious look at what you all have gotten for the money spent.
Good idea.
Could you start that for the next board
Yes.
meeting in May?
I could certainly
Continue
do.
on through the rest of the year. Is that satisfactory to you,
That's
Commissioner?
great, yes, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, thank you. Are there any other members, others business? Okay, I'm going to request an executive session, and then after that, I'll just formally adjourn the meeting. So I'm going to ask everybody if they could just step out.
You have to give the reason.
Pardon me? It's a personnel matter.
What is it?
A personnel matter.
No, what kind of personnel matter? You don't have to tell me the names, but you have to tell me what kind.
I think it's a matter related to a contractual question with the labor force.
It's related to a contract issue.
Hmm?